If you ever looked around your life, the title, the success, the responsibilities, and thought, hmm, they're going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, this episode is for you. I'm Kellie D'Andrea, former CEO and keynote speaker, and today we're breaking down imposter syndrome. Not the surface level version, the real thing that high achievers experience every day. What it is, why it happens, and most importantly, how to move through it without losing yourself in the process.
Audio Jungle.
So picture this. You're sitting in the nicest chair in the nicest office you've ever been in. You got the title on your email and you got a calendar everyone wants a slot on, or maybe even the parking spot. You did the thing. You're accomplished. You actually did it. And your first thought before your second sip of coffee is, oh, they're going to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing. If you just went, oh my gosh, that's me, well then welcome. Welcome, my friend. You're exactly in the right place at the exact right volume. You want to go ahead, you want to turn it up a little, because today we're going to get into the thing that secretly runs your life more than your calendar does. Today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. I don't mean the TikTok hashtag Instagram quote version. I mean the real thing, the one that eats at the edges of your confidence while you're standing on stage. The one that whispers in your ear on the Zoom call when you're getting promoted. The one that watches you accomplish something extraordinary and goes, yeah, that was luck. In this next hour, I'm going to answer every single question I keep getting from you. What is imposter syndrome really? What does it look like when you have it? What are the signs? How do we end up with it in the first place? And the part I love most, how do we actually start moving through it? Not around it, not under it, but through it. So grab a coffee, a pen, a walk, a dog, whatever you got. Let's go. Hello, and welcome back to the show. Stronger than before. If you're new here, I am so glad you found us. And if you're a long-time listener, the loyal one that listens at 1.5 speed while folding your laundry, thank you. Truly, I feel you. Here's why we're doing a full hour on this today. I asked you what you wanted me to talk about next. And in my inbox, my DMs, my comment section, there were basically a choir singing the same song. Could you please do an episode on imposter syndrome? Then you didn't ask for just one question. You asked for 4. What is imposter syndrome? What do you see or feel if you have it? And are there signs or signals I can actually look for? And my favorite, because it's so honest, how do you come up with imposter syndrome? Which I love, because that's the question underneath the question. It's really, how do I end up like this? And is it my fault? I want to give you a spoiler alert, it's not. And we are going to get into exactly why. But here's my promise to you for this next session. I'm going to make this simple. And I'm going to make it real. I'm not going to throw a wall of clinical jargon at you and call it insight. We'll laugh a little. We'll get quiet a little, and then you'll walk away with a framework, an actual practical usable framework for spotting imposter syndrome in yourself, naming it, and doing something about it. But one quick question before we dive in. I see you. The listener of this podcast is typically someone who has done the work. You're the one who stays late, reads the books, takes the course, prepares for the meeting 3 meetings ago. You're the high achiever. And I want to say this before we go 1 second further. The fact that you're listening to an episode on imposter syndrome is, in itself, evidence that you are not an imposter. Imposters don't ask these questions. Imposters don't reflect. You do. So hold that like a warm mug for the rest of the episode, okay? Great. All right. So get your pens ready, get your hearts open, and let's start at the very beginning. Okay, let's make sure we're speaking the same language, because the phrase imposter syndrome gets thrown around like glitter at a bachelorette party. Everyone's covered in it and nobody knows where it came from. But here's the cleanest definition I can give you. Imposter syndrome is the internal experience of you believing you're not as competent as others perceive you to be, despite clear evidence that you absolutely are. I want to say that again. You are a high achiever. You're getting results. But internally, you believe that you are not as competent. It's the persistent fear of being found out. It's looking at your accomplishments and crediting luck or crediting timing or charm, the weather, or the vibe in the room. Anything except you. It has 3 ingredients. Write these down or don't. I'm not your boss. But number 1 is external evidence of success. Once again, you're a high achiever. You are getting success. The degree, the promotion, the sold out event, the kind of review, the award, the kid who turned out great. You did a thing. It's real. It exists in the world. Number 2 is internal dismissal of that success. You tell yourself, oh, it doesn't count. It was easy. It wasn't really you. They were just being nice. They'll figure it out next time. So you have an internal dismissal of your success. Number 3 is fear that the truth will come out. You're the one in the meeting, the one email, one question away from someone pulling back the curtain and discovering you. That fear is the thing that keeps you over prepping, overworking, over explaining, and underestimating. Those 3 ingredients together, that's imposter syndrome. Now, let me tell you what it is not. It's not simply low self-esteem. A person with low self-esteem can feel bad about themselves, even with external success. Imposter syndrome specifically requires the disconnect between the outside view and the inside view. On the outside, accomplished. You're getting all the results. You probably have a healthy bank account. But on the inside, you're saying, oh my God, please, nobody asked me a follow-up question. It is not humility. Humility is knowing you have more to learn. Imposter syndrome is knowing you've already earned something and refusing to let yourself have it. Big difference. Humility is peaceful. Imposter syndrome is loud. It's not the same as being new. Newness feels like uncertainty because the terrain is actually unfamiliar. That's healthy. Imposter syndrome shows up even after you've walked the terrain for years. And this one matters. It is not a personality flaw. It is not a weakness. It is not a character defect. What it is a pattern. Patterns can be traced and patterns can be interrupted. You're not broken because you have it. You are human and you are shaped by very specific things. And we'll get into those in segment 4. But a bit of tiny history so you understand. The term imposter phenomena, which is what it was originally called, was coined in 1978 by 2 psychologists, Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes. They were observing high-achieving women in clinical settings, and they kept seeing the same thing over and over again. Brilliant, accomplished women who could not internalize their own success. It didn't matter how much proof they had. The proof bounced off them like a rain off a raincoat. Clance and Imes originally thought it was a woman's thing, and for years the culture and narrative treated it that way. But here's the update. The research now tells us it shows up across every gender, every background, every profession, every level of success. It's especially prevalent in high-achieving people, also in underrepresented groups, and interestingly, in people who are the first in their family to do something, the first to go to college, the first to lead a team, the first to earn a certain level. But here's the wild part. An estimated 70% of people who experience imposter syndrome at some point in their life, 70%. That's not a syndrome. That's basically a weather system. And here's why that's actually good news. If 70% of the people feel it, then the problem isn't you. The problem is something about the air we're all breathing. Social media, the insight, the places, the opinions, which means I want this to really land. You are not alone in this feeling. You are not the only one pretending you're fine. In the all hands meeting, look around. It's basically everyone. I didn't understand until my imposter syndrome turned into a full-blown identity crisis. I had it moving up in my career, and then I had a stroke, which caused my brain to be wacky. My mother's death took a toll on me. I got fired from going back too soon, and I was basically in a toxic relationship. All of this happened to me in a moment's notice. It wasn't until I pressed myself to recover and to research what was happening to me that it was through some therapy that I was introduced to imposter syndrome. It gave me clarity, something to research and something to understand. And when you notice that you are not broken, that you are becoming something more than most people have it, and you just don't recognize it, especially if you are a high achiever. And if you're a high achiever, you're a fixer. So is imposter syndrome even real? Well, I'm going to give you a quick FAQ. I get this all the time. Is imposter syndrome actually real, or is it a made-up wellness thing? I'll tell you 100% it's real. It's documented. It has been studied for almost 50 years. It's been connected to burnout, anxiety, depression, career stagnation, and chronic overworking. It's also been connected to some sneaky positive stuff like conscientiousness and the desire to grow, which is part of why it lives in high achievers so comfortably. More on that in a minute. But it is also, importantly, not a formal diagnosis. You won't find imposter syndrome in the DSM. It's a pattern, not a disorder. And I want you to hear that because I don't want anyone walking around saying, I'm an imposter syndrome person. You are a person who experiences imposter syndrome sometimes. The pattern is not your identity. Okay? So that's the what. That's the definition, the history, the headline stat, and the myths that we're putting to bed. When we come back, I'm going to show you what it actually looks like when it shows up in your life. Because the sneaky thing about it, imposter syndrome, it doesn't always look the way you think it does. So stay with me. Quick break. When we come back, the 5 flavors of imposter syndrome and which one is running your operating system. A word from our sponsor. Welcome back. Okay, here's where it gets fun. One of the most helpful frameworks in this entire conversation comes from Dr. Valerie Young, who took the Clance and Imes work and asked a really good question. How does imposter syndrome actually show up in behavior? Because the feeling is always the same. I'm a fraud. But the coping mechanism is where things get interesting. She identified 5 types, 5 costumes that imposter syndrome loves to wear. And I'm going to walk you through all of them. I want you to listen for the one that makes your stomach do the little, oh no, me flip. That's your primary. You probably have traces of others too, but the one that feels like it was written about you personally. Ready? Okay, here we go. Type 1. The perfectionist. The perfectionist sets impossible high standards for herself. And even when she meets 99% of them, she fixated on that 1% she missed. A perfectionist delivers a flawless presentation, is laying in bed at midnight rewriting slide 14 in her head. And if the work is not immaculate, it's proof she's a fraud. There is no good enough. There is perfect or there is failure. And there is nothing in between. The secret ingredient here is control. If I can just make this perfect, no one will ever find out. But perfection is a moving target, and you will never, never outrun it. The perfectionist tells herself she has high standards. Her standards are actually a cage. If this is you, the cure is not lowering your standards. It's redefining done. And I'll come back to that. Type 2 is the superhero. The superhero compensates for feelings of inadequacy by working harder, longer, and more than literally anyone around them. The superhero is first in, last out, running on coffee vibes, and not having a real weekend since 2019. If you catch her resting, she looks uncomfortable. Rest feels like lying. If she's not producing, she's not valued. The secret engine is proof. If I work myself into the ground, no one can say I didn't earn this. Superheroes don't burn out. They incinerate. They also often that last ask for help because asking for help would reveal they don't know something, which in a superhero's mind is a capital crime. If this is you, your nervous system is begging you, please stop breathing at 140 BPM all the time. Type number 3 is the natural genius. The natural genius measures competence by how fast and how easy she does something. It doesn't get in right on the first try. She feels like a fraud. She's that straight A kid who grew up. She was told she was smart, that things came easily, that she was gifted. So now as an adult, when things are actually hard, which is what adulthood is, she takes that struggle as proof that she's not actually gifted. The secret engine is ease. If I were really as smart as they think, this would be effortless. So the moment something requires effort, there's a shame spiral. Natural geniuses avoid new challenges specifically because they might be bad at them. At first, maybe, and being bad at something, even for 5 minutes, well, that feels intolerable. If this is you, you have to unlearn the idea that struggle equals inadequacy. Struggle is the cost of doing some interesting thing. That's the price, and there is no discount. Type 4 is the soloist. The soloist believes that asking for help is evidence of not belonging. A soloist would rather Google at 11 p.m., cry a little, rewatch a tutorial, and muscle through than tap the person sitting 3 feet away who could answer the question in 30 seconds. Needing help is disqualifying. The secret engine is self-sufficiency as identity. If I need others, I'm not as capable as they think. Soloists suffered quietly and often invisibly because the whole point is not letting anyone see. If this is you, asking for help is not a revelation of weakness. It's a professional skill. The best people in every field ask the most questions. They're not guessing, they're calibrating. And type number 5, the expert. The expert believes she needs to know everything, every single thing, before she's qualified to speak, apply, start, or claim a title. She takes one more course, one more certification, one more book. She is the most prepared person in every room and will still not speak because, and I quote, I don't feel ready. The secret engine is credentialing. If I just know enough, the feeling will go away. And it doesn't, because the feeling was never about knowledge. The feeling is about permission. And no external credentialing has ever, in the history of humans, actually delivered permission. Permission is an inside job. And if this is you, the answer is not more information. The answer is acting before you feel ready, because feeling ready is a myth and you will die waiting. Okay, so let that settle, breathe. And here's the thing, most people are a cocktail. You might say, hey, a perfectionist superhero hybrid, or a soloist with a twist of experts. I get it. We all are a cocktail, and you could probably see yourself in every costume that imposter syndrome wears. All right, let's get concrete. You asked for signs and signals, and I'm going to give you a checklist. I want you to mentally, or actually on paper, mark the ones that feel like a ping. We'll group these into 4 categories: mental, emotional, physical, and behavioral. So the mental sign, you're struggling to accept compliments. Someone says, oh, that was amazing. And your brain says, oh, they're being nice. Compliments bounce off you like rubber arrows. You attribute success to external factors, like I got lucky, the timing was right, the team carried me. Anyone could have done it. If the success was yours, it's because something else made it happen. You attribute failures to internal factors. I'm just not cut out for this. I'm stupid. I don't belong here. When things go wrong, you are full and only because you have a loud internal critic. Your inner voice is running commentary all day long, and it's not kind. Do you remember when I said you have the angel and the devil? Both of them are speaking, and it's up to you to decide which one is correct. The devil speaks loudly. When I had my stroke, that's all I heard. And the angel speaks positively. You have to remember what to do with that loud internal critic. Your inner voice is running commentary, and it's not kind, and it is specific. It remembers things. It brings up moments from, years ago. It is a very committed employee. You rehearse conversations obsessively before and after they happen. You prep for small interactions like their court case. You replay them like game tape. Did I sound smart? Did I sound dumb? What did I say per my last email? So emotional signs. You feel chronic, low-grade anxiety about being found out. It lives in your chest. It's never fully gone. It's a dull hum. You feel jealous of other people's ease, and then you feel guilty for feeling jealous. Watching someone confidently claim their own success can almost feel physical. You feel dread before win, not just before challenges. The promotion, the award, the launch. Instead of joy, there's a tight knot, because the more visibility means the more chance of being caught. You feel disconnected from your own accomplishment, like they happen to someone else, like you're watching a movie of your own life. There are emotional signs, but the physical signs, you don't sleep the night before anything important. Your body literally stays up preparing for a test it's already going to ace. You carry tension, shoulders, jaw, chest, gut. Your body holds that fear your mind keeps trying to outrun. You experience symptoms of burnout, even during periods of success. You're winning and you're depleted all at the same time. That combination is imposter syndrome's fingerprint. You stress eat, stress scroll, stress shop, or after a big moment, you just are self-regulating because your nervous system is on high alert. And then the behavioral sign, you're overprepared. Not just prepared, over prepared. You got the notes, the backup notes, and the notes to the backup notes. You've mentally stimulated the whole event 12 times. You procrastinate on things that mattered most. Weird, right? Imposter syndrome and procrastination are best friends, because if you ever actually ship the thing, no one can judge the thing. Procrastination is a protection racket. You can downplay your achievements in conversation. It's no big deal. I just got lucky. Anyone could have read it. You actually lie, not maliciously, but reflectively. You make yourself smaller. You avoid applying for things you're qualified for. The research is brutal on people with imposter syndrome often only apply when they meet 100% of the requirements. People without it apply at about 60%. The gap? Well, that's years of your career silently siphoned off. You don't negotiate or you under-negotiate. You take the first offer. You don't ask for the raise. You don't push back on the title. Because inside, you're half expecting to be told, actually, we made a mistake. You say yes to everything. And then you resent yourself for it because no feels like risk. You avoid visibility. You want the outcome, but not the spotlight. You want the impact, but not the credit. You'd rather ghostwrite your own life than put your name on it. The hardest sign of all, you have a private archive of evidence that you're a fraud. Remember that one typo in the email 5 years ago? I'm sure you do. You remember the question that you couldn't answer in a meeting? You remember the comment someone made, 5 years ago. Imposter syndrome is a meticulous historian of your worst moments. It does not, however, remember your wins with the same clarity. The wins are blurry. The losses are K extra, ultra. If you're nodding along right now, if several of these signals are lighting up like Christmas trees, I want you to hear me. This does not mean there is something wrong with you. This means that there is something identifiably happening, and identifiably things can be changed. Next up, we're going to get into where this whole thing comes from. How do we end up like this? Why? Why me? Why now? And take a quick stretch, drink some water, and we'll be right back. Okay, the question I love most of the ones you sent me, how do you come up with imposter syndrome? Because nobody wakes up one day and decides, I think I'll invent a relentless inner critic that undermines every win I have for the next 40 years. Sounds fun. Nobody chooses this. But imposter syndrome is built brick by brick, usually over years. And the bricks come from very specific places. And let me kind of walk you through the main ones. So the brick number one is childhood labeling. I know it all goes back to your parents. Two types of kids are especially vulnerable to imposter syndrome later in life. The first kid who was praised for being smart, not praised for effort, praised for being, you're so smart, you're so gifted, you're so talented. That kid grows up tying her identity to an innate quality. So when adulthood delivers the first experience of struggle, which it will, it doesn't interpret struggle as normal. It interprets it as evidence that the label was wrong, that she was never really smart, that she fooled them. The second is the kid who was praised conditionally. Love, approval, and attention arrived when she achieved. Achievement became the currency of connection. That kid becomes an adult who doesn't know how to feel worthy without a performance. Rest feels dangerous. Stillness feels like invisibility. And every success just resets the timer on the next one. If either one of these are you, I'm sorry. You didn't design that system. You just learned to live inside it. Brick number two is family and cultural messaging. Lots of absorbed scripts like, don't brag. Who do you think you are? Pride comes before the fall. Stay humble. Some of that was cultural. Some of it was religious. Some of it was a well-meaning parent trying to make sure we didn't get a big head. But when you don't take up too much space, it gets drilled in from age 5. You end up at 35 in a boardroom with a legitimate idea and your mouth won't open. Brick number 3 is being the first or the only. This one is enormous. If you are the first in your family to go to college, or the first woman on a leadership team, or the only person of color in the department, or the only openly queer person in your field, or the first generation anything. You didn't grow up watching somebody who looked like you and who acted like you do and what you're doing now. That's called a missing mirror. And when there's no mirror, your brain fills the silence with one question on the loop. Do I belong here? It's not a character flaw. It's a pattern recognition without pattern. Brick number 4 is high pressure environment. Certain fields specialize in manufacturing imposter syndrome. Whether you're in academia or medicine, law, finance, tech, entertainment, entrepreneurship. These are worlds built on comparison, credentialing, and the constant implication that you are one bad quarter away from being irrelevant. If you've spent 10 or 20 years in one of these fields, imposter syndrome is not a bug. It's a feature. The system is running exactly as designed. Exactly. And brick number 5, comparison culture on steroids. So let's talk about the elephant on your phone. Social media has turned imposter syndrome from a quiet, private struggle into an aggressively amplified experience. You scroll for 90 seconds and you've seen 6 people launch something. 3 people get a promotion, 2 people built a six-pack, and 1 person announced her book deal while on a yacht. You close the app and think, God, what am I doing? Your brain was not built to process 500 highlight reels a day. Nobody was. So that's the comparison culture. Brick number 6 is the high achiever paradigm. And here's the deeply annoying irony. The very thing that makes someone likely to succeed, your consciousness, your self-criticism, your attention to detail, a desire to grow, are the same things that make them more likely to experience imposter syndrome. Your ambition and your imposter syndrome were raised in the same house. So if you're a high achiever, most of you are probably feeling this, which means you have to read this part twice. Your imposter syndrome is not the opposite of your success. It's been riding shotgun the whole way, and you've been achieving without it in the car. And brick 7, the first major success. This is the one nobody warns you about. When you finally accomplish something big, imposter syndrome gets louder, not quieter, louder, because now there's no more to lose. Now the gap between public perception and private experience is wider. I've seen this pattern play out hundreds of times. The big promotion, the book deal, the sold out event, the viral moment, and inside, someone quietly spiraling, because now the stakes of being found out feel higher. And here's what I want you to take from all of this. Your imposter syndrome is not random. It's not spiritual punishment. It's not evidence that you are secretly defective. It is the completely logical result of specific inputs you had zero control over as a child and only some control over as an adult. And the reason that this matters is because if it was built, it can be unbuilt. Not in a day, not with a hashtag, but with method, practice, and a little bit of grace. That's what the next segment is for. So stay with me. And this is where we stop diagnosing and start dismantling. So this is the part I'm most excited, because this is where it stops being a TED Talk and starts being a tool you can use tomorrow morning at 8:47 before your first meeting. I'm going to give you 7 tools, and 7 is a lot. So let me tell you up front, you do not need to use all 7. You need to pick 1, maybe 2, and actually do. One practice tool is worth 10 tools you've nodded at. So here we go. So tool number 1, you need to name it out loud. Imposter syndrome lives in the dark. It's the basement creature. The fastest way to weaken it is to turn on the light, which is the case most literally naming it out loud to someone. Say, I'm having a day where I feel like a fraud. Say, my imposter syndrome is loud right now. Say it to a friend, a partner, a coach, a mentor, or just yourself in the car. If you separate the event from your identity, it will become amazing for you. And why does this work? Because naming the feeling creates a gap between you and it. You are no longer the feeling. You are the person noticing the feeling. That gap is where your power lives. Tool number 2 is to build a receipts folder. I'm serious, literally a folder. Call it receipts, call it evidence. My personal favorite, in case I forget who I am. Inside, save every kind of email a client or a colleague ever sent you, every thank you message, every testimonial, every screenshot of praise, every moment of impact, big or small. Notes from people you helped. The text your friend sent you at 11 p.m. last year saying you changed her life, save it. Why does this work? Because imposter syndrome has famously a biased memory. It archives your losses in high definition and your wins in blurry thumbnails. A receipts folder fights back. The next time the voice says you have no idea what you're doing, you open up that folder and you show your brain, here is objective evidence gathered over time from real humans. Your brain can't argue with you. It cannot argue with a folder. Tool number 3, the I'd believe it about my friend's test. I'd believe it about my friend. Whether the imposter syndrome says something brutal, you're going to embarrass yourself, you don't belong here, everyone is going to see through you. Ask one question. Would I say this to my best friend? I have a saying, I say, WWJD, what would Jesus do? If your best friend called you tonight and said, I am about to give the biggest presentation of my career and I'm terrified, you would not say to her, yeah, you should be. You probably are going to embarrass yourself. That is not what you do as a friend. You would say, you work so hard. You're so prepared. This is yours. You've got this. Offer yourself the words you would offer her. That is not delusion. That is basic decency applied inward, where it's been most overdue. Tool number 4 is separate the feelings from the fact. Get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write, what am I feeling? And on the right side, write, what's actually true? And I know this sounds very complex, but the question is, if you write this down on paper, what am I feeling? And then what's actually true? You are going to say, I have 12 years of experience. I have a degree. I have 3 promotions and 2 industry awards. I was selected over 14 other candidates. I feel like everyone thinks I'm a fraud. The right side, I have no evidence of that. I received positive feedback 3 times this month. You do this exercise when the feeling gets loud. The feeling is real, but the feeling is not the same as the fact. Imposter syndrome confuses the two, and you get to separate them. Tool number 5, act before you're ready. I know this one's a little spicy because it goes against every instinct imposter syndrome is giving you. Imposter syndrome tells you once you feel ready, then you can do it. And then it quietly makes sure that you never feel ready. It's rigged. It's a casino. The only way out of it is to flip the order. Action first, feelings follow. Apply when you're 60% qualified. Speak up before you feel credentialed. Raise your hand before you have the perfect answer. Start the podcast, pitch the client, send the email, ask for the raise. The readiness you're waiting for is the gate that does not open unless you walk through it anyway. Confidence is not the prerequisite. It's the receipt. You get confidence after you do the thing, not before. Tool number 6 is redefine what done means, especially for my perfectionists. And I am a perfectionist, and we know who we are. Done cannot mean perfect. Perfect is the finish line that keeps moving. If your only definition of done is perfect, you will never finish anything. And if by accident you do, you will hate it. New definition of done, good enough to serve the person it's for. The presentation doesn't need to be flawless. It needs to inform the room. The email doesn't need to be a Pulitzer nominee. It needs to communicate clearly. The launch doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be put out. Done served is better than perfective shelved. You want to tape that to your monitor. Done served is better than perfect. Tool number 7 is you want to find your people. Imposter syndrome shrinks dramatically when it's witnessed by other people who get it. A peer group, a mastermind, a mentor, a coach. A group text with 2 friends in your industry, a community. And this means so much because here's what happens when you're alone with it. Your brain is the narrator, the critic, and the judge, and they will all have the same voice. And what happens when you build a community around you? Those voices breaks the spell. If you take nothing else from this segment, take this. The antidote to imposter syndrome is not more confidence, it's more connection. So let's go through the reframes and the script, and you can kind of keep this into your back pocket. So reframe 1. When you hear yourself say, I don't know what I'm doing, replace it with, I'm doing something new. Reframe number 2, I got lucky, becomes I was prepared when the opportunity came. Reframe number 3, anyone could have done this, becomes I was the one who actually did. Reframe number 4, when the voice says you're going to be found out, ask it, found out as what? A human who's learning? Yes, that's true. Moving on. And then reframe number 5, I don't feel ready, becomes ready is a feeling, not a credential. Keep looking. And the script I want you to practice literally out loud this week, at least once in front of your mirror or a friend or into a voice memo. Thank you so much. I worked really hard on that. I'm proud of it. I know I can feel the cringe from here. That's the point. That's the cringe. It's imposter. Say it out loud, the long game. The one thing, because this matters, imposter syndrome is not something you defeat once and close the book on. It's something you manage across a lifetime. The goal isn't to never feel it again. The goal is to recognize it faster and let it run your life less and keep doing it the same thing anyway. The most successful, accomplished, wise people I know are not people who never feel like imposters. They're people who feel it, name it, and move away. That's it. That's the whole game. So what I want to talk is in this final stretch, I want to close out with something that a lot of podcasts on this topic skip because it's a little uncomfortable. Not every feeling of self-doubt is imposter syndrome, and conflating the two can actually keep you stuck. So here are the 3 situations where what you're feeling is not imposter syndrome and the solution is different. So the first one is you are generally new. If you just started a job, a role, a relationship, a business, and you're feeling uncertain, a little over your head, learning as you go, that's not imposter syndrome. That's being new. That feeling is healthy. It's the feeling of your skill level catching up with your opportunity, which is exactly what growth feels like. The solution is not confidence building. The solution is time, reps, and a mentor. How do you tell the difference? You ask yourself, am I feeling uncertain about the task I haven't yet done, or am I feeling uncertain about the tasks I've already mastered? If it's the first, it's newness. If it's the second, it's imposter syndrome. Situation number 2, there's an actual skill gap. Sometimes we really are missing something, a specific skill, a specific certification, a specific piece of knowledge. And is not imposter syndrome. That's information. The solution is to close the gap. Take that course, hire that coach, get the mentor, read the book. Don't label a skill gap as an identity problem. It's a calendar problem. If someone with no imposter syndrome is full confidence in themselves would also need to learn this thing, then so do you. That's not a crisis. That's a Tuesday. Situation number 3, you are in the wrong environment. This is a big one. And I see this constantly. Sometimes the feeling of I don't belong here, it's not imposter syndrome, it's information. If you're in a workplace that is dismissive, discriminatory, micromanaging, gaslighting, or just a culture mismatch for who you are, that's not your inner critic. That's your instincts picking up on real signals. Imposter syndrome says, I don't belong here, but actually I do, and I should stay and prove it. The misaligned environment says, I don't belong here, and I'm right, and I should leave. How do you tell? Imposter syndrome shrinks when you're with warm and trusted people and grows in that specific environment. Misalignment is consistent. It doesn't go away when you do the inner work. It goes away when you leave. Please do not spend 3 years doing shadow work to feel worthy of a chair in a room that was always going to make you small. Some chairs deserve to be walked out on. I know this because when I left the family environment and I went into this big business, I suffered this. We were just so misaligned and I was mistreated that I had my inner critic come in and said, oh my God, do you belong here? The question is, I did belong here, but those chairs wasn't something that I wanted to sit in. The reason I'm including this segment is because I never want you to weaponize imposter syndrome against yourself. I don't want you to take every uncomfortable feeling and file it under another thing to overcome. Some feelings are invitations to grow. Some feelings are warnings to pay attention. Learning to tell the difference is part of the work. Okay, so let's bring it home. If you're still with me, first of all, thank you. We've been on this podcast for many, many minutes, and you have a precious life. You spent thinking about this, and that's not small. That's practice. That is love of yourself in action. Imposter syndrome is the inner experience of yourself, does not match your outer evidence of your life. You feel like a fraud even though you're not. It has 3 ingredients: real success, internal dismissal, and fear of being found out. It shows up in 5 classic types: the perfectionist, the superhero, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. And in the long list of mental, emotional, physical, and behavioral signs that we just walked through together, it was built in you by a combination of childhood labeling, family scripts, being the first or only, high pressure industries, comparison cultures, the high achiever paradox, and the paradox of success itself. It is common. 70% of people, common. and it's manageable. You've moved through it by naming it, keeping the receipts, treating yourself like your best friend, separating feelings from facts, acting before you feel ready, redefining done, and finding your people. You remember that not only every doubt is imposter syndrome, that some doubts are information that you're supposed to act on. And here's the most important thing. I said that the whole episode, and I said this the whole episode. You are not an imposter. You are a person who has been carrying a pattern. Patterns can be interrupted. You're right now, by listening to this, already interrupting it. Your homework this week, one, you got to pick your type. You already know which one it is. Say it out loud. Two, you want to start a receipts folder this week. Add 3 things to it. That's your minimum. Add more if you want. 3, do the one thing this week you've been telling yourself you're not ready for. Send the email, make the pitch, book the call, put your name on that thing. I promise you, feelings follow action, not the other way around. 4, you want to tell one person, just one, that you've heard an episode that describes you and you want them to be someone who knows this about you. This is how the spell breaks. Witness in daylight by a human who loves you. If this episode's moved you, hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Share it with the one friend who you know deep down needs to hear this. Leave in a quick review helps more people find the show. And I read every single one. And if you want to stay in touch between episodes, I'll link everything in my show notes. Where to find me, where to send questions for future shows, and where to join our community. So you never have to carry this stuff alone. I'm really proud of you for showing up for yourself today. You didn't have to, but you did. You are not an imposter. You are a person doing hard, meaningful work in a world that didn't always make it easy. Keep it going. We'll do this again next week. Take care of yourself. I'll see you soon.